Well, the sun is set on the 2024 Cincinnati Bengals. They needed about 100 things to go right, and all but one of them do in the end. The filthy team from Kansas City cannot muster up anything against Denver. They get trounced 34-0. Now they're kind of taking victory laps. Their fans are anyways. Good for them, whatever. I do love that at least the Bengals are at a point in franchise history where the two-time defending champions are talking about them going into the playoffs, despite the fact that the Bengals did not make the playoffs. Whatever. We should know better than to trust a quarterback named Carson, right? You are in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. Going to be a little bit different of a show this evening. It's 9 o'clock on Sunday night as I record this. Going to do this and then catch that second half of Lions and Vikings. But I don't have anything written down. I usually have at least some notes. This is all off the dome today, so bear with me a little bit. But basically what I want to do is just give you the two reasons. There's two reasons in my mind that the Bengals did not make the playoffs. Now, there's a lot of things you can point to as to why things didn't go right throughout the season, but for me, you've got to look at two things. There's two things that they could have done differently, should have done differently, coulda, woulda, shoulda. I know that had they done, they would at least be in the playoffs. Maybe they could have won the division. Maybe they could have went even further. Who knows? But there's two little things, both that I think fans and people who cover the team who really pay attention have seen coming. At least one of them. We saw it coming and they didn't fix it. So let's get right into it. Bengals finish at 9-8 for the second consecutive year. And for the second consecutive year, they missed the postseason. A lot of people have pointed back. So I'll just say thing number one. Everyone's calling this slow starts. I don't want to call it a slow start. I want to say they are unprepared. It's the same thing, yeah. But the slow start, it's kind of a slow start to me indicates September. And look, they start out 1-4. It's bad. The Patriots game I can forgive. I've talked about that throughout the season. It was a new head coach. They didn't know what to expect. You had a team that was fired up in New England because they were the biggest underdog of the week. They had a new head coach after playing for some guy whose name's Bill Belichick, who apparently a lot of people don't like. That was an upset that at the time, and still to this day, really, I'm fine with. Every team has a loss happen they shouldn't. Week 2, you lose in Kansas City. Okay, crazy call. They get a 4th and 16, get bailed out. We can live with that. You end up in week 3 losing to a rookie quarterback at home in primetime. It's Jaden Daniels. He was awesome. But in a 0-2 situation at home, you have got to be prepared for everything. This is what it comes down to. You were unprepared. You were unprepared against New England. All right, we let you off the hook. You were unprepared against a rookie quarterback 2 weeks later in Baltimore. You were unprepared for a crunch time situation when your quarterback, it wasn't in Baltimore, it was actually in Cincinnati. You were unprepared in crunch time. When Joe Burrow is dicing people up, you run it 3 straight times, settle for a 54-yard field goal. It doesn't go through. You were unprepared for the situation. I talked about it all season. Zach Taylor gets frazzled. He does. He did it a little bit on Saturday night against Pittsburgh, right? Bengals dicing him up, and he 3 straight calls to Khalil Herbert. You've got to be prepared. What the great Bill, it wasn't Bill Walton, it was his coach at UCLA. Preparing to fail is failing to prepare, right? Here's the other one I want to look at that it was the Chargers game. You're unprepared. What was the start? This is why I should write things down, but what did they start out there? They were down 24-0. You were unprepared in a must-win situation again. You can call it a slow start, and it was a slow start, 1-4. But I think they are an unprepared team, and it's not like it was just September. They were unprepared. They lost in Los Angeles 34-27 after being down 27-6. You were unprepared. You were down 24-0 or 24-6 at the end of the half. Unprepared. You get a bye week after that. This one's as bad as any. You get a bye week after the Chargers game. You've got a week to rest up, figure some things out, come home and play Pittsburgh. You give up 44 points, lose 44-38. Once again, 2 weeks to figure things out. 2 weeks to figure out the issues with the defense. You give up 44 to a Pittsburgh team that's barely sniffed 40 all season long. Unprepared. Simple as that. This team was unprepared in so many situations, not just to start the season And again, this is now 3 consecutive seasons where they've started at least 0-2. This time 0-3 and then eventually 1-4. So after the 1-4 start, so they finished 9-8. So I mean, you win 8 of your last 12. Bengals are 8-4 in their last 12. Unprepared. Simple as that. There were too many situations, not just for the games, but again, when the push comes to shove, this is a team that repeatedly, and you can blame whoever you want. I'll tell you one thing I'm not going to do, and a lot of people are pointing at different areas of this team. You will not hear me blame the offense for anything. Could they be better? Of course. Especially that interior offensive line. Receiver, quarterback can't be any better. Running back, Chase Brown is awesome. That's all you can hope for out of a day 3 pick. He is running back 1 for the near future, and that's awesome. They found a gem in Mike Gesicki. I've got no complaints about this offense. Every team in the league, except maybe 2 or 3, would take it. But as a coaching staff, they weren't ready a lot of times. On defense, they had issues. They had 2 corners go down, didn't know what to do. Cornerback, we'll get into that in a minute, but I mean, the depth, again, defensive line, you weren't prepared for when Sheldon Rankins went down. Just too many issues that this Bengals team did not prepare for. I've said it before. They hoped that certain things would work out. They did not ensure that these areas, they did not ensure that they could get another guy to replace Sam Hubbard's production. They said, yeah, he's going to be 30 and he is taking a beating. What happens? We saw what happened. Same with, okay, let's get into thing 2. So thing 1 for me is this team was not prepared or unprepared in too many situations that coincides with the slow start. Thing 2, and this is all defense. This is the second reason the Bengals did not make the playoffs. They lost 2 amazing players and did not replace them on the defensive side of the ball. The first one, you probably know, DJ Reader. They saved $4 million, go out and sign Sheldon Rankins. Non-existent. Non-freaking existent. Wasn't good when he played, gets some sort of illness. I hope he's fine, obviously. I got nothing personal against the guy. But again, we've seen this before. The example, I don't know if I said it on the show or somewhere else, but I mean, it was 2008 or something like that. They let TJ Hushmanzada go to Seattle, 4 years, $28 million. They signed Lavernius Coles, long story short, they let TJ Hushmanzada walk, worked in the system. Everyone loved him. Locker room leader, C on his chest. They let him go to Seattle. He signed for 4 years and $30 million. They bring in Lavernius Coles for 4 years, $28 million. They save $500,000 a year to lose that production, that leadership, someone who was loved in the city and still is, for a guy they cut the next training camp. Did it again this year. DJ Reader, same situation. Everyone in the locker room loves him. He's awesome on the field. He wore the C on his chest. Yeah, he was coming off a torn hamstring. I get it, man. He's 30 years old. I get that part. But if there's a guy you take a flyer on, it's a guy like that. You signed Sheldon Rankins to be the replacement. We know how it went. Haven't you seen this story too many times before with this team? They just didn't, and you get some guys, maybe Chris Jenkins, McKinley Jackson, they look good. Maybe they'll be good down the road, but why waste this year with that? And I don't know, maybe they didn't waste it, but it was a bad decision. And you can't make bad decisions in this division, in this conference. You talk about the MVP race right now, no one's talking about anyone in the NFC. They stink. The best 4 quarterbacks in football play in the NFC, or in the AFC, Burrow, Lamar, Mahomes, Allen. It is tough sledding in the AFC. There is no room for error. There's no room for error, especially in the AFC North. And what a big old error that was to let DJ Reader go and bring in Sheldon Rankins. It's a big, big error. Simple as that. There's 2 guys on this defense. The other one, Cam Taylor-Britt. No, he didn't go anywhere. Well, he kind of did. The guy we knew, and look, I know the last month of the season he improved, and that's fantastic. I said during the bye, getting him some confidence, figuring out where to play him was as important as anything, because there's no doubt in my mind, or I think anyone's mind, he is a talented football player. He might not be a number 1 cornerback, but he is a talented football player. Put him at safety, put him at nickel, figure something out. But the fact of the matter is, the guy that they thought Cam Taylor-Britt, and this is where I can't really blame anyone, except maybe Cam Taylor-Britt and by God, you know it hurt him as much as anyone. He simply wasn't the guy that he's been the last couple years. He wasn't the guy we all anticipated he would be. I said during a podcast before the season started, the Bengals have to be considering the money they're going to have to pay Cam Taylor-Britt. I genuinely thought 4 or 5 months ago that this offseason they were going to have to give Cam Taylor-Britt top 10 cornerback money. I thought that impacted their T. Higgins situation. I was completely wrong, and I'm not happy about it. I don't think anyone's happy about it. But they lost 2 really good defenders, arguably 2 of their best 3, obviously alongside Trey Hendrickson. One of them, I don't know what happened to him, Cam Taylor-Britt. I hope he regains his form. He looked good these last few weeks. Had a call the other night in Pittsburgh, of course, the one in the end zone. A little sketch. By the way, if anyone wants to go back through that game and look at every weird spot the Steelers got, some automatic first downs and close ones there, huh? You want to go back and cut those up, send them to me. I'll Venmo you $15. That was a strange one, was it not? Boy, had the Bengals lost that game, that'd be something to talk about. But at any rate, Cam Taylor-Britt, the guy we thought he wasn't there this season. That sucks. I hope he comes back. Whose fault is that? We don't know. Is it a confidence thing? Did they put too much on his plate? Did something change within what Lou Anarumo is doing on defense where he was no longer as comfortable? I don't know. Was it all mental? I don't know. I hope they know, and I hope they're trying to figure it out. They seemed headed in the right direction. But they lost him. They lost DJ Reader, and neither one got replaced. And as long as we're talking about cornerbacks, they also lost number 2 and number 3. They moved Dax Hill over. He looks pretty good, tears the ACL. DJ Turner comes in. He looks all right, breaks his collarbone. They end up having to start a 5th-round rookie in Josh Newton at cornerback this last month of the season, and he did pretty damn well. That's a positive to take out of this. A lot of those guys down the stretch here, the rookies, the young guys, Joseph Osai, who's not really young anymore, Miles Murphy, they were in there. They were playing all right. But this year, when you look at the reasons, and I said there's a lot of reasons, but to me there are 2 as to why the Bengals are not in the playoffs right now. That's what they are. Their lack of preparation, 1, and losing 2 of their best 3 defensive players, 2. Sucks. But there's not a lot of room for error in the AFC. There's simply not. So, in a decision that I'll surely regret one day when I'm laying on my deathbed, I was arguing with some strangers on the internet last year. What a weird thing we do. What a bad waste of time. By the way, how did everyone know how damn stupid everyone was before we had Twitter? Just people would just say anything. And I think that they think they're smart. But you can tell if there's one thing that I follow really well, it's this team and this franchise. So when someone with a Missouri in their location comes at me and is like, dude, Burrow, what? What? You're talking about the offense? It's what, 4th in scoring on the year? People just want so badly to have an opinion in this day and age about things they know nothing about. Bengals had a little stretch, right there in that bye. You lose to the Ravens in Baltimore, 35-34. And yeah, there's a 2-point situation at the end where Burrow gets axed in the helmet. Gesicki gets tackled. But at the end of the day, Bengals gave up 21 in the 4th quarter. With 9 minutes to go, am I thinking of the right game? Oh, no, I had it flip-flop. So in the first one, they were actually up by 10 in the 4th quarter. And in this one, going for 2, they get hosed once again. But even in that one, the Bengals were up 21-7 in the 3rd quarter. Couldn't hang on. Weren't prepared. Didn't know how to hang on to a lead. Chargers the next week. We already talked about it. You go down, you're not prepared. You're down 27-6 before you know what's going on. Then you get a bye, and the Steelers, who we all think kind of suck all of a sudden, come into your house and put up 44 points. There's a lot of things you can look at. But at the end of the day, the Bengals had too many situations. It was too little too late, right? Before this 5-game winning streak, their wins were against the Raiders, stink, Browns, dumpster fire, Giants should probably fire everyone, and the lovely Panthers, who we all like, but boy, were they bad that first couple months of the season. So 9-8 once again. This time it's a lot harder to swallow because Joe Burrow was there all season. He was excellent all season. And the team around the offense, just despicable. Special teams even. I mean, too many misses. We'll see what happens with Evan McPherson. Obviously, he's the guy next year. But you got to figure that situation out too, because one thing that's lost in the shuffle with all the focus being on how poor this defense was this year, Evan McPherson struggled. And you can't have that. Again, things are too tight in the AFC. In the NFC, you can go over there and you can, you look at the NFC, you can go 9-8 and make the playoffs. Doesn't happen in the AFC. Yeah. That's not true. You can't go 9-8. The worst wild card. Well, I guess you got 2 10-7 teams in. I don't know. Let me vent a little. So, is what it is, man. I think I said a few weeks ago, the wins I enjoy more. I mean, and that's another thing I'll say. Winning in Pittsburgh in a game they really wanted and tried to win, that does feel good. And I do come from an era where I will never not enjoy beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. Joe Burrow, by the way, since his rookie year, he lost there. He got housed in his rookie year. Since then, he has won 3 consecutive games as the starting quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So that's good. Love that. I'll never get tired of seeing them beat the Steelers. That's fun. After the garbage performance the Chiefs put on today, I turned off the TV and hung out with my daughter. We had fun. She gave me a kiss on the head, told me she loved me, and all was well. That said, this team's got to figure some things out in the offseason, because if there's a silver lining that we want to put on this, and I've heard people say this, I heard people say that if the Bengals get into the playoffs, they will then say, well, maybe we didn't actually have that many issues. Maybe now that they didn't make it, and I don't know that it was going to be the case anyways, but maybe this will kind of be the kick in the rear end they need to say this is unacceptable. The guy we have under center, the guy we have in shotgun, the guy who wears number 1, the guy who wears number 91. I mean, it's quite possible the Bengals have the best quarterback, wide receiver, and pass rusher in the history of the franchise on the roster right now. Can't make the playoffs? Figure some things out. So there is a report out there from James Rapine that changes appear to be coming. That's on SI.com. He does Bengals Talk, does an excellent job over there, along with Jay Morrison. So, he says Bengals are expected to make changes to their coaching staff in the coming days. League sources told BengalsTalk.com. So go check them out. Check everyone out. They do a nice job over there. We'll see. Does that mean Lou Anarumo's out? Zach Taylor? I would just be as stunned as anything if Zach Taylor's staying. I would bet money on that one. Been wrong before. Bengals, by the way, are the lone AFC team with a positive point differential to miss the playoffs. They outscored their opponents by 38 points this year. They are the only ones in the AFC with a positive point differential to miss the playoffs. The only other 2 teams in the league to do it were the Cardinals and Seahawks, and Cardinals plus 21, Seahawks plus 7. So, again, you can just add all the things up. People can say this and that. At the end of the day, you've got to win some big games. And the Bengals' signature win on the year is Pittsburgh last night. So you can't wait until January. You can't wait until after Christmas to get your first big win of the year. Just not going to work. You had plenty of opportunities. And again, you were not prepared to take advantage of them. That's what it comes down to. You're not going to win all those close games. That's what I said. Even the Patriots game week 1, it sucks, yeah. But every team every year, just about, loses some games they shouldn't. The Ravens lost to the Raiders this year, right? Detroit, as good as they are, lost to Tampa. And Tampa's a good team, but I don't think anyone's taking them seriously as Super Bowl contenders. You look at the Eagles. They started out slow. They're the number 2 seed. They're as likely as anyone to go out and win the Super Bowl this year. I think most people would say they lost to Atlanta early in the season. Atlanta stinks. So I can handle, and I think we should all be able to handle, we know by this point, good teams lose games they shouldn't. But good teams also have to win some of the close ones sometimes, and the Bengals just never did that. You lose by 1 in week 2. You lose by 5 at home in week 3. You lose by 3 in week 6 or week 5. Just at some point, you've got to be the one who makes a play or makes a drive at the end of the game, and they were not prepared to be that team. I don't think that falls on Joe Burrow. I don't think that falls on anyone on the offense. You want to call it the coaching staff. You want to call it the players on defense. That's both fair game. The Bengals definitely broke more than they bent late in the games defensively. No doubt about that. Whoever is at fault for that needs to either improve or be gone. And we'll figure that out here in the coming weeks, I'm sure. But right now, it's just, and look, there's going to be people who, if you're someone who watches the Bengals every week like me, and I haven't missed a game in my adult life, probably since like middle school, I have not missed one. There's going to be people who, and whatever, that's sports. That's what we do, right? You go to a bar, you argue with friends, and it's a lot more real and engaging and friendly than online. I try to do that, by the way. If someone says something stupid to me online, I try to say like, oh, what if that was just a person at a bar? What would their tone be then? Because then you're a lot more likely to see a smile on their face. But, people get too fired up about the online stuff. However, what I'm saying is if you watch this team, because there's going to be people who say, well, you should have won this game. You should have won that game. Yeah, you're right. But what you know, if you watch this team week in and week out like I did, is it was just too good and too talented to not make the playoffs, and yet they did not. So whose fault is that? I've got some opinions. I don't know that I'm ready to put them out there quite yet. I think they need to bake a little bit more. But there's some things that are probably going to need fixed. There's some things that definitely need fixed. Because next year, you kind of wasted a year here. There's no kind of about it. You wasted a year here. Best receiver in football. Historical season from both receiver and quarterback. Ja'Marr Chase, the first receiver in NFL history to have both 1,700 yards and 17 touchdowns. Very unfortunate. Very unfortunate for all involved. You wasted a year because you were not ready. And again, were things a little too laid back? Did you kind of have, when push came to shove, were you able to deliver the blow? No, this team was not. So whose fault's that? Tell me what you think, and we'll go back at it and see here over the next couple weeks what the fallout is. But right now, just kind of a post-mortem of this season, and it's a tough one to swallow because you saw when this team played at its peak how good it could have been and how good it was at times. But you needed to win one of those big games, and they didn't. So, sucks, is what it is. Nothing I can do about it. We'll sit back and watch the playoffs. I am going to root for the Buffalo Bills. I think that they are the team, small market team. They've been so close so many times, and obviously it's not going to be Baltimore or Pittsburgh, Kansas City. None of us want to see them win. They suck. Just as people, as a football team, they're really good. But I don't know if you've ever been to Missouri. I haven't, but I've seen pictures, and it's horrendous looking. And then, I think we'd all like to see maybe the Bills or Lions. Wouldn't mind see Tampa winning. I mean, can you imagine the fallout in Cleveland if Baker Mayfield won a Super Bowl? Goodness gracious. So, yeah. That's where I'm at. Minnesota's another team. If they win tonight and get the 1 seed, who knows what will happen. That one winding down right now. Detroit up 7-3 with 3:02 to play in the first half. You just want to see someone who kind of, like the Bengals, up until a few years ago, suffered a lot. So I'd like to see one of those smaller teams and, whatever. I'm going to try to enjoy the playoffs. It's nice that Pittsburgh and Baltimore play each other Saturday night. One of them will get knocked out early. So let's see. Today's Sunday. I'll have another episode out sometime this week. Kind of collect my thoughts and go from there. Probably Thursday or Friday if you want to listen. I'm going to try to put these out during the off season as well. Probably just one a week. Probably take some breaks here and there. And we'll go from there. So I wish this were a happier episode. I hope that brighter days are ahead, and I'm confident they are. Like, there are a lot of teams. Of the 18 teams that didn't make the playoffs, the Bengals probably have the best, they got the one thing that everyone wants in an elite quarterback. I cannot believe 14 quarterbacks made the playoffs and Joe Burrow is not one of them. It's a failure. It's an absolute failure from the suits at Paycor Stadium. So we'll get into that more. It's unforgivable. Unforgivable. I'm Matt Edwards. This is In the Jungle. I appreciate you tuning in. I'm going to go sulk now. So, no, I'm not. Life's fine. But at any rate, I appreciate you tuning in all season. It's been fun. We'll keep it going into the off season. Things will get better. Brighter days are ahead. It'll be awesome if someone like the Bengals can get in there and knock the Chiefs out. Hopefully it's not the Ravens or Steelers again. We'll find out. What are you going to do about it, huh? Steelers have won Super Bowls before, and we've lived to tell the tale. So appreciate you tuning in. My name's Matt Edwards. This is In the Jungle. If you like it, tell a friend about it. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment if you think I'm wrong, right, indifferent, whatever, and I'll reply back as much as I can. And we will see you again later this week.